Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. New York is undoubtedly a mecca for the arts, though more and more it's arts for the wealthy, those who can afford to spend $150 for the opera, $200 for a concert at Madison Square Garden, or God knows how much for tickets to the hot new musical Hamilton. Fortunately, though, for the rest of us, there's Summer Stage, which each summer brings a bumper crop of world-class entertainment to 15 parks throughout the 5 boroughs, all for free. I'm delighted to welcome Erica Elliott, Executive Artistic Director of the City Parks Foundation's Summer Stage program, to tell us about the workings of the program that sponsors more than 100 free events with more than 300 artists, including how she chooses them and who pays for them. Clearly, hers is a labor of love for the arts and the city. Welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Summer Stage is 31 years old.
It is, yes.
Tell me about how it got started and how it has evolved over the years.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was started as a way to sort of address public perception and use of Central Park. At the time, Central Park was not particularly safe or well cared for with all the economic crisis that was going on in the 80s. And so the Parks Department and our early artistic director thought if we brought arts into this space, it's a way to get people into the park, to perceive the space differently, to reignite the energy around the space. And so that's sort of the humble beginnings, was just the idea to do it. Some really
And it started out just in Central Park?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's sponsored or whatever, run by the City Parks Foundation?
It is,
what is
yeah.
that?
City Parks Foundation is an independent nonprofit. We do all kinds of work around parks, from advocacy to education, sports, and arts and entertainment. So that's the overarching nonprofit that produces Summer Stage, as well as a host of other things.
I was telling you that last night I attempted, after like 40 years in the city, I attempted to attend my first Summer Stage event. It was Trevor Noah in Central Park.
Yeah.
But, you know, the line was so long I couldn't get in. So basically how all of the venues work is people just show up, first come, first served, might have to stand in line for a while. Don't need tickets?
No tickets.
Okay.
So the thing to know is in Central Park, there is a finite capacity of 5,000. And so as you saw last night on a very, very popular show, there is a line and we do sometimes reach capacity. But in the other locations across the city, there's not so hard capacity because there's no fencing. We're just essentially a pop-up festival. We bring staging or existing staging that's in the park and activate it that way. So no lines outside of Central Park. And
people bring blankets and chairs and whatever?
Just kind of come as you are. Certainly outside of Central Park, there's a lot more flexibility because they're a little bit more open space where we have a very specific, again, finite space within Central Park.
Tell me about some of the venues.
Yeah, well, this week we were in Brownsville in a park called Betsy Head, and it's just a big ball field. If we are not there, it's used the way many fields are for probably sports and recreation primarily, and we bring in a big mobile stage and we set up for a week. So in this past week, we had Public Enemy and Angie Stone and a whole barbecue event from a community hip hop group, and then spoken word and family and dance. So essentially each one of the venues outside of Central Park is a week-long run. It's usually multidisciplinary and we'll have a combination of music, dance, theater, spoken word, film, family, and everything is free.
One of the reasons I, never tried to go to Summer Stage until, yesterday was I always thought of it over the years as this kind of hosting kind of strange events, kind of strange groups, and that there were maybe a lot of rock groups that appeal to young white kids and groups that I would never have heard of, and that's one reason I didn't pursue it. But it seems like if that ever was the case, it probably has changed.
I would say that probably isn't our history. I think our history is really embedded in world music and cross-cultural collaborations. I think that's primarily been the legacy. Even in the early days, I mean, we did Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, and Sun Ra Orchestra. So the perception that it may be something you don't know is probably true for a lot of New Yorkers. Although I think the challenge, and again, the blessing, is that we really do try and have something for everyone. So in doing that, you know, if you have one of the most iconic African artists, let's say, or some superstar from Latin America, the average New Yorker who's not part of that community or isn't listening to those types of music might not know those artists.
So that's probably not going to be in Staten Island. It's more likely to be in the Bronx or
well, or in Central Park,
right.
And then again regionally. So when I made that statement, that's really about Central Park, where we do, you know, on any given day, we'll do Metropolitan Opera one night, and then Latin rock the next, and then perhaps, you know, hip hop the next, and you know, last week we had a Yiddish Soul Festival. So it's really all over the place. And again, with the notion that we want to have something for all New Yorkers, and to do that, you really have to appeal to communities and bring in musicians that are important to those communities.
So you really do try to tailor the entertainment to the different communities, the different boroughs.
Yes, and so in Central Park, it's a little wider scope because it's the heart of New York. It's Central Park, so we try and be really diverse and inclusive there. And around the 5 boroughs, the notion, yes, is absolutely that those shows should be representative of the communities. There should be some sort of natural tie, whether the musicians themselves are from those neighborhoods, or the dance companies, or the film that we're showing has some sort of connection, or that the work that they're presenting, you know, or the genre they're performing has some sort of inherent connection to whatever the borough is.
And sometimes you will have a theme for the season, and this summer's theme is jazz.
Yeah. No, I'm very proud of that. I've been the artistic director for over a decade, but in the last 3 or 4 years, we've sort of honed in on the notion that, you know, there's a lot going on in New York. There's a lot of other festivals, and what we think makes Summer Stage unique is that we are distinctly New York, and we're in neighborhood parks around the city in locations that most other festivals, you know, have one central place, and that's it. By being really regional and hyper local, we have a unique character and a unique feel that you only get in New York. So if you're seeing a concert in Bed-Stuy, or you're seeing a concert in the South Bronx, regardless of the talent, it's really a New York festival. And then we looked a little deeper, thinking about, if we're a really distinctly New York festival, what are the genres and musical movements and cultural movements that have a strong history to New York? And so we've done a few celebrations around that thought, and this year we're celebrating jazz.
I was looking at this summer's lineup, which is very eclectic. You have obviously the jazz musicians.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, the Metropolitan Opera Summer Recital Series. You have movie screenings.
Yep.
Dance groups. You mentioned Yiddish Soup, which brought cantorial and Hasidic superstars. There's some plays.
Yeah.
And comics, poets. So it's really very, very eclectic. You are from LA. Were you ever a performer yourself?
Not in earnest. I mean, I actually went to performing arts school growing up, so I did, you know, act a bit and dance a bit. But soon into that, realized that I really prefer not being on the stage.
How did you happen to come to Summer Stage?
I'd worked in commercial music business prior. I worked at a booking agency and record labels and radio, and was booking a club in New York, a 500 capacity club in Lower Manhattan, and the job became available, and I applied and was lucky enough to get it.
How do you go about picking the performers? What's that process like? I mean, do you go around to clubs or around the country to scout out groups? Do you get input from the Cultural Affairs Department or other organizations? How does that work?
It's a really complex and nuanced, you know, like anything. It's partly just experience, and I've been doing it a long time and even was involved in live music prior. But it's a combination of going out a lot and seeing a lot of bands, and I do that both in New York, where we're lucky enough to have really just about everyone play here, and then I travel internationally to see artists and outside in their native countries. I think it's a lot about relationships. So really I rely on my colleagues and agents to tell me what they're working on, new signings, what they're listening to, as well as my presenting colleagues from around the country and world. So it's a combination of things, and then just.
And
Yeah.
what are the considerations in choosing the groups? What are you looking for?
Usually I'm looking for an artist to sort of be both contemporary and important in whatever genre they are doing. So the importance can be because they're reinvigorating an art form, it can be because they're innovating, it can be because their profile is really building in a major way and they're getting a ton of press, or it could be that they are, just a very important artist, again, from a certain genre or country that doesn't play here often. So to get them here in New York, that would be meaningful for New Yorkers.
Now, the concerts are free. Does that mean the artists are working for free, and if they are, how do you convince them to work for nothing?
Well, nobody should work for nothing, and I certainly would not want artists to perform for nothing. But so we do pay them. We pay them as competitively as we can. And we do a lot to raise the funds to produce this great festival. And so that's a year-long endeavor. And we've got a great development team that is focused on the fundraising aspect, and that's everything from big fundraising dinners. We just had our gala in Central Park that honored music legend Ron Delsner. But then we also have corporate sponsors and government support and, do a variety of things to raise the funds necessary.
What's your annual budget like?
For talent, it's about $500,000 in Central Park.
Okay. And what would your biggest cost be?
I think the it's probably equal production and artistic. Probably slightly more for production in terms of having an adequate staff from security to clean up, to set up, to production, and all of the equipment. So, running a festival on this size is again, we run from May to October for longer than almost anyone. So the day-to-day costs of just doing that are expensive, but certainly we're in it because we believe it's important. So luckily we've had the support financially to do that.
Okay. We're going to take a short break, but I'll be back with more with Erica Elliott right after this message. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Cheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm speaking with Erica Elliott, Executive Artistic Director of the City Parks Foundation's Summer Stage program. Does New York, we have Summer Stage, we have the Philharmonic Orchestra concerts in the park, we've got dancing at Lincoln Center, we've got concerts in Damrosch Park. Does New York have more free stuff, outdoor events than any other place, or?
Gosh, I don't know the metrics, but I would say probably. We're so lucky in this city. There is so much free arts and culture and so much that people can access that is free. It's to me one of the best things about being in New York.
And certainly in the summertime, it's a fun place to be.
Yes, nature dictates that most of what we do is spring, to summer and early fall. Early fall is beautiful. We run until October, so
you run from
May through October.
May through October. Yeah. Okay. Now I remember some famous performances in Central Park, like the Diana Ross concert is sort of notorious. Was that a Summer Stage event, or was that something else?
That was not. There are events that the Parks Department and Central Park host at the Great Lawn. So that's what you're thinking of. That's where Simon and Garfunkel performed and all of that. A much larger open field, the Great Lawn. But our space, has been in use for 31 years, and our capacity is 5,000. Yeah.
Tell me about some of the groups, some of the performers who are appearing this summer, and how you settled on them.
Ooh, again, it's quite a process, but I think we have an amazing season. We've already had a host of great events, but upcoming this week, in fact, tonight, we have Indigo Girls, really important singer-songwriters who certainly could play lots of places in New York. We've got King Sunny Ade, very important African artists. We've got a whole host of Latin events around the LAMC. Great jazz musicians. The Revive the Live Big Band is coming. And we end our season with Charlie Parker Jazz Festival, which to me is one of these.
Is that a 3-day event?
It is, and it's such a New York gem. 3 days, and in Harlem for 2 days, Marcus Garvey Park, and then in Tompkins Square Park downtown, neighborhoods that Charlie Parker lived or worked, and all for free.
Okay. Any new discoveries this year?
Gosh, there's always so much great music happening out there. Let's see, new discoveries. We're doing a really exciting show, I think, with artists who are making New York debuts. Mwabwanga Star, which is a Congolese electro group that has been making a lot of noise internationally. And interestingly, I think they're paired with Bachita, which is a Portuguese band that has Congolese influence and images, and then a New York-based artist, Young Paris, who's really doing some interesting stuff around African and hip-hop music.
Okay. Did I see a marionette theater?
Yes, yes. We run the Swedish Marionette Theater Cottage in Central Park, and that is actually a year-round property that we manage, and we do puppetry both there and take puppets out into the park across the 5 boroughs. The Marionette Theater operates year-round again. We even have a holiday show in the...
How often are there
2 shows a day. 2
Really?
shows a day, yep. Yep, serving New York for a very long time. And that building, in fact, is a historic building from the World's Fair.
Okay. Who have been some of your favorite performers throughout the years?
Such a hard question. You know, one that was particularly memorable is Gil Scott-Heron, right before he passed, just being someone that...
The poet
and
to music.
Yeah,
right.
Just as an influential New Yorker and someone who had such an impact on culture and hip hop and other things, to be able to present him was quite a memorable moment. We've had so many, you know, in the 10 years that I've been there, and every summer there's something that is just special. So it's really hard to hone in on a favorite child.
You don't have to mention names, but
Sure.
have you had any performers or groups who were a disappointment to you that you want to own up to?
You know, not too many, to be really, really honest, in terms of their artistry. You know, sometimes what's disappointing is the attitude, right? You know, I mean, certainly this is a labor of love for all of us, and we're bringing arts to New Yorkers for free. So there have been a few instances of artists that I really respected as musicians who just
didn't behave too well.
Well, just had a certain air about them of, you know, that was unnecessary given the format. So that's a little sad when you kind of meet some of your musical heroes and they're not quite as nice of people as you had hoped.
Did I hear or read that you're a hip-hop devotee?
Devotee, that's an interesting... I'm a fan and have been. I grew up listening to it, and I'm definitely a fan.
And what are some of the I assume there are some hip-hop groups that have performed or will be performing
Absolutely.
this summer?
Well, you know, the other thing that I feel super lucky to be in a position to do in this role is to celebrate hip-hop, which is a New York art form that has gone global and has made such a huge impact on arts and culture around the world, and to celebrate it here in its birthplace. So I've worked with, you know, forefathers like Kool Herc and Crazy Legs of Rocksteady's crew, and then I've brought artists like Public Enemy recently to Brooklyn. There's a host of artists that we present every year, and I think it's really important because, again, these are artists from many of the neighborhoods that we present in who have made an international impact.
Doing the job that you do, you must have learned a whole lot about music, about a lot of art forms.
Yeah.
Just from, you know, recruiting for the program.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you have learned on the job?
Well, I have to say I came into this organization really with a very straightforward, you know, mainstream commercial music background. Again, working at record labels and such. And I really did not listen to music that was not in English. I didn't know that much about world music, you know, maybe reggae or something of that sort. But what has been a real joy is to really have a sense of global community across music. And there really is a community of of people making music across the world and coming together to create projects. So I think that's been the biggest thing. It really did open my world to take this job and to be in a position to really have to listen to things that maybe challenged me, things that I didn't understand the lyrics to because I didn't speak the language, and I could still learn to appreciate. So that's been the real gift and joy of this job, is to really expand my frame of reference in what music can be.
I was watching a movie yesterday. It was a French movie, and it centered on a French family that was into American country western movie, and they sang it and they danced to it, and I said, "Wow, who knew there was a country music?" There were devotees in France.
Yeah.
So, have some of the groups been non-English speaking, singing?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. A good portion of what we do is non-English language, not domestic. So I would say in general we probably present about 60% U.S. art forms, and that could be from singer-songwriter to jazz to hip-hop to opera to whatever. Mm-hmm. And then 40 to 50% of it is global international music. So often it's not in English, often it's in whatever language of country of origin. So a good portion of what we present is global music, and often not in English. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you consider some of the well, you said you were in performing arts, I guess in high school or
yes,
before that?
I performing arts a bit, and then I shifted a little bit more to the creative arts and photography, and I'd always been a painter, drawer, those kind of things. But yeah, once I went to college is when I really thought I'd love to still be around music, but I didn't want to be a performer. So I worked at my college radio station. I interned in radio when I was in college, and then when I moved to New York, interned at a record label, and that's been my legacy, from the record label to other record label booking agency, and then booking a small venue in New York, and then now this festival.
When you were working for the record label, what did you?
What did I do?
Uh-huh.
I was working in radio promotions, so we had regional reps that were promoting our artists via radio, and so I was working with that team to coordinate logistics and help promote the artists.
Okay. Is that, I would imagine there would be some CUNY students who would be interested in getting into that field. What's the best way to do it? Is it internships, or what is it?
Yeah, I interned for a year unpaid while working a full-time job. So, and things may have changed. Look, it's been a long time. Maybe there's other ways, but ultimately it's about relationships. So I think interning, certainly if you can get an entry-level paid position, that's great. But a lot of times interning is the way to go, just to build the relationships, to show who you are, to get some knowledge. And then, of course, social media now, and you can create a lot of things on your own. I imagine that could be an entry point, too.
What have been some of the greatest rewards of your job?
Gosh, I feel so lucky to every day be bringing music and arts and culture to people. There's nothing better. Having worked in music, I always thought and feel that music is really important. It can lift your spirits, it can give you solace, it can do a lot of things for you, and to be creating platforms where people can access it without barrier, again, without a ticket price, to come see artists that are important to them, and also discovery, being able to present arts and culture in neighborhoods that might not normally have access to it, to get young people in front of this art. All of those things are so rewarding. So I just feel really lucky.
How many of your events do you actually go to in the course of a summer?
Almost all.
Seriously?
Yeah, yesterday I was in two locations in one night. I went from Flushing Meadow Park. We had a great, huge concert out there, only in Queen's Day, and then came back to Central Park for Trevor Noah. I really try and get to all of our shows, and that includes, family days and dance shows. We often have 2 shows on any given night, and I do my best to get to all of them because that's the good stuff.
It's sort of like a tough job, but somebody's got to do it, kind of thing,
well,
right?
Yeah, except being out there with the audience. There's one thing to sit there and imagine how people are going to feel or what the audience reaction is going to be, but the true reward is when you are standing there there and you see thousands of people responding to an artist, and that's what you've worked towards. So is that sort of the validation that you're doing it right? So to not be out in the field and to be out at the concerts, I mean, that's sort of the reward for all your hard work.
Well, I wasn't able to get into the Trevor Noah event last night, but I'm
But you have to come back.
I'm going to come back and try to come to my first Summer Stage event. I'm afraid we're out of time, but I want to thank Erica Elliott, Executive Artistic Director of the City Parks Foundation's Summer Stage program, for joining me. You can get the complete program and learn ways you can get involved by logging onto cityparksfoundation.org. For the City University of New York and One to One, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.